Welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast with your host, Funk Roberts.
We are live, and welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast. This is episode number 148, and I'm your host, Funk Roberts. I'm a former professional athlete turned master metabolic trainer, certified hormone and testosterone expert, and health and fitness guru for men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. And I am your host, and this podcast is specifically for men, just like you, over the age of 40, where here we're going to talk about natural ways for you to increase testosterone. We're going to talk about mindset and recovery strategies. We're going to talk about workouts. We're going to talk about nutrition. We're going to talk about sleep. We're going to talk about supplementation, and we're going to talk about chronic health and health issues that hit us on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. And today, on this episode, we're going to talk to Dr. Jockers about autoimmune diseases. That's right. Autoimmune disease. Did you know that there's over 100 autoimmune diseases? And I'm sure you've heard about what autoimmune disease is. You're going to find out on this podcast, but I'm excited to have Dr. Jockers on the podcast again. He's like an OG because when I first launched the Over 40 Alpha podcast, like relaunched it, he was one of the first to come on. And if you don't know who Dr. Jockers is, he is, he's a doctor of natural medicine. He specializes in functional nutrition and natural health strategies. He's also has a master's of science and is also a doctor of chiropractic health. He's also the founder of drjockers.com. If you have not gone to this website, in fact, what I want you to do right now, if you're listening to this, if you have time, maybe you can write this down or just remember Dr. Jockers. You're going to hear his name quite a bit in this episode. I want you to bookmark that website because that website is incredible. It's designed to empower guys like you and me with science-based solutions to improve your overall health. Yes, this is also a podcast that you need to be a part of because this podcast, the Over 40 Alpha podcast, which you should also bookmark, is for you guys, like on a holistic basis, right? It's everything, not just health and fitness. I mean, we go into relationships, we go into business, we're going to go everywhere and go everywhere for you. But this is another one of those podcasts that you want bookmarked. There's certain podcasts that you listen to all the time, right? That you have bookmarked. This is one to do because he's got over 1 million monthly page views. He's considered probably one of the most well-researched and easy to read sites, but also he's an incredible doctor who's been published in various media. You may have seen him on ABC, Fox News, Hallmark channel. You may have seen him on Dr. Oz, but I really truly love having Dr. Jockers here because he talks a lot about functional nutrition. And so the reason why I brought him on is because one of the key categories of his site is on autoimmune diseases. And I know through a family member of mine who is battling with this right now, how it can be very frustrating. Right. Listen, when you go to the doctor, you're not feeling good or you've come up with something that like you may have been healthy. You may have been extremely healthy. You're working out, you're doing Funk's workouts or whatever workout you're doing. Your nutrition's on point. You may not be 100%. Maybe you're 60, 65, 70, whatever. But, you're still feeling good. You got energy. You're going to your day-to-day life. You got plans. Your family's around. And then all of a sudden, boom, you get hit with something where it just debilitates you. Doesn't matter what it is. It's just something that debilitates you, causes your life to come to a complete screeching halt. And now this is life or death, or at least this is what you think. And you go to the doctor and the doctor will send you to a specialist. And then you go to the specialist, depending on what specialist is. And one specialist is like, well, I'm not sure if it's this or maybe this. You know what? Go see this other specialist because they may know. It doesn't look like you have, what I thought you may have and what I specialize in. You may have a couple of things, but this doesn't jive with what I usually see. Go see another specialist. So you go see another specialist who says, okay, yeah, could be this, but I'm not sure. I mean, it could be this. It's probably 80%, but I don't want to, diagnose you with something specific. But I do know that I have these prescription drugs that I can give you that will at least take care of one of the symptoms that you're dealing with right now. At least it will help you to decrease the uncomfortableness, the pain that you're going through. And then, yeah, that's it. But I can't really tell you exactly what you have. And that's it. And now you're left on your own. Sure, you have this prescription drug that kind of gives you some relief, but you just maybe 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, just before this traumatic thing has happened to you, illness, what have you, you were crushing life. You worked out, you had nutrition, you did everything. You were doing, this is normal life. Things were happening, nothing really out of the ordinary that would have prompted you to feel like this could be something that you could be dealing with in the future. But now, not only do you still not know what you're dealing with, but now you're got these prescription drugs, which most likely are going to make everything worse. The one thing it'll make you feel a little bit better, but the side effects from prescription drugs that we know, we've seen it, or we've been on prescription drugs. I was on prednisone for 6 months, and it was hell for 6 months. Although it saved my life, I was supposed to be on it for 2 years. But I just accelerated that because there was no way you could put me on that drug for more than 6 months, exactly what I was on. So we know the side effects, but now we don't have an answer. We don't even know what we have because the specialist that we went to doesn't even know what we have. Imagine that happening to you. Because it's not out of the ordinary, specifically with something like autoimmune disease, which there's over 100. So it can be very difficult for, a specialist in, endocrinologist, right? Or, like a immunologist or a rheumatologist. Like those are specifically 3 types of specialists that could help with any of the 100 autoimmune diseases. Not help, but at least diagnose. Sure, there's more. What do you do? Where do you go? So today we're going to talk to Dr. Jockers, and we're going to talk specifically about autoimmune disease, but a lot of this stuff is just living a healthy lifestyle, but uncovering a lot of what causes autoimmune. First of all, you're going to learn what an autoimmune disease is. You're going to learn what causes them. You're going to learn the complexity of diagnosing them and why it's so hard for doctors to diagnose, or why they do diagnose, but don't give you a treatment per se. Like, how do we find the root cause? Because that's really what we want to do, find the root cause. But the good news is Dr. Jockers will come with some real strategies that you can start to use if you're dealing with any of these things, or just any type of illness. I mean, these kind of steps are something that as we get older in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond, that we should start to take. I took a toxin test, and I think one of our podcast episodes, I'm literally going to have I got the results from this toxins test, and I'm saying this for a reason. I got the results from the toxins test, and but I don't know how to read the results. I kind of see there's a couple of things there, but I don't really know how to read it. But I don't want to talk to the doctor. I want to do it live on this podcast, because these are tests that I've never taken before. I know that we should be taking these tests, PSA, colon. There's the key ones, but there's also other ones that we should be now starting to take, so we know what type of toxic environment that we're living in, because that is one of the key elements of autoimmune disease, is the type of toxic environment, your body and where you live in. So this is going to be great. I know that even if you are dealing with a type of autoimmune, even if you think you may be, even if you don't even think you are, but then all of a sudden you're listening to all this stuff and you're like, oh my God, that's actually me, right? Or if you know somebody, right? Because remember, as men, we are here to provide, protect, and procreate. So the protection part of it is not just physically protection. It's about creating an environment that's safe and supportive for our family members, and understanding for ourselves, okay, I'm going to get the knowledge, because sometimes when you're in it, it's very difficult for you to be open to knowledge. Not everybody. There's a lot of people who are, because they just want to figure out what this is. But other times, our role as parents, as husbands, as grandparents, as people in the pillars in our community and around us where we work, just the knowledge that we can gain from this gives us a better ability for us to create a safe and supportive and loving environment for those around us who are dealing with whatever they're dealing with. The more we understand, even if they don't understand, and remember, we're not the doctors, so we're not going to go, you got to go see this, you got to go this, you got to do this. That's how we want to. We want to be more supportive. We want to be like, okay, yeah, I totally understand. You know what? And then how do we support? I always say this, and I'm going to end this before you get to talk Dr. Jockers. We support by living the life, living that lifestyle. Hey, I'm eating real healthy this way. It's really helping me. It's really decreasing my inflammation. It's really helping me to gain energy. My hormones are up. You may want to try this. Right? Actions speak louder than words. We are men of action, but we can't take action until we have the information. So with that, one last thing before we go. If you are looking for supplements, specifically multivitamins, omega-3s, vitamin D3, K2, go to funksupplements.com. Use the code podcast10. You're going to get 10% off. The reason why I'm giving you these is because these are 3 main supplements that we should be taking on a regular basis. There's more, but these 3, 100%. So go grab them now. I only have high quality supplements. Podcast 10, get 10% off. And now go listen to Dr. Jockers. He's amazing. He's awesome. And enjoy the podcast. Welcome everyone to today's podcast episode. On today's episode, I consider him an OG. He is an OG of the Over 40 Alpha podcast, one of the first to be on this podcast. Great podcast episode. And now inviting him back to talk about autoimmune. Our guest today is a natural medicine, doctor of natural medicine, specializes in functional nutrition and natural health strategies. And of course, the founder of drjockers.com. So without any further ado, welcome Dr. Jockers. And thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Well, thanks so much, Funk. I love what you're doing here, really helping a lot of men over 40. And important topic that we're going to discuss today.
Yeah. So why don't you give us a brief overview of what autoimmune diseases are? Because this is something that's, in my personal life, it's there, but also it's something you're hearing more and more and more of. And how does that affect our bodies?
Yeah, for sure. Well, autoimmune basically means your body's attacking itself. The immune system is attacking itself. And so we have this immune system, and its job is to help us break down damaged tissue in our body so we can repair it with good, healthy tissue. And then on top of that, it's also there to help prevent against pathogens from building up. So, too much bacteria, pathogenic bacteria, parasites, viruses, fungal species, different toxins. Its job is to help eliminate those from our body so they don't obviously cause some sort of systemic infection. When we think about the history of mankind, more people have actually died from infections, systemic infections or sepsis than anything else throughout the history of humanity. And that's because, even when we were, having stick fights or spears and all this kind of stuff, most people didn't die from the actual wound. It was the infection that got into the bloodstream, got into the lungs, caused pneumonia, got into the brain, caused meningitis or encephalitis, right? And would kill us quickly when it got to these vital organs. And so because of that, the body has created this immune response, we call it inflammation, in order to prevent infections from killing us immediately, right? Because we can live a long time with inflammation, but we can't live a long time if we've got a infection eating up our lungs, right? And so inflammation is part of the survival response and is part of the healing response. What happens though is when we have high inflammation, think about it like a radio. Like if you're trying to listen to the radio, I know nobody does that anymore, but back in the day, right? We used to try to get the radio on in our car, and sometimes we'd have really bad, we'd have bad reception. And so it would start getting static. You could barely hear certain things. And that's kind of what happens when there's high level inflammation in the body. The natural communication process, cell to cell communication, the communication process for the immune system becomes very static and it's not getting the right messages. And so now the immune system, in a sense, becomes blinded, right? And now it starts getting a lot of collateral damage. Think about if you were playing darts, right? You had a dartboard, you're playing darts, and you blindfold yourself, right? Most likely, you're going to be hitting the wall. You're going to cause a lot of damage to your wall, right? You're very few of those are going to actually hit the bullseye. And so you're going to cause a lot of damage. That's kind of basically what's happening in the body. So in a sense, there's already smoke going on in the system. The smoke has been there for a while, and that's this low level chronic inflammation. And then there's some sort of major stressor that takes place that triggers an even worse and even a stronger response in the body. And then the body will actually create these high level of antibodies to self tissue. And so there's a number of different root cause factors behind that, because that's always my question is, why is the body doing that, right? The body is, we have this innate intelligence, right, that runs our body. We don't have to think about our digestion. We don't have to think about our heart beating, our lungs breathing, right? It's automatically running itself, and it's designed to keep us alive, right? To preserve our life. That's really the goal of our autonomic or our physiology that we don't have to think about. So why would the body create this response where it's now targeting its own self tissue? Right. And that's the question we have to ask. But when it comes to autoimmune diseases, I mean, there's over 100 of them. The body can attack any sort of tissue. It can attack cells in your cerebellum, right, which can cause dizziness, cause a lot of different cognitive issues as well. Some of the most common autoimmune conditions are rheumatoid arthritis, where you're attacking your joints, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, where you're attacking your thyroid tissue. You may have heard of lupus, where you're attacking different connective tissue in your body. These are really, really common, but it can attack any tissue, any cell type in the body can develop antibodies. And once those antibodies build up beyond a certain threshold, right? So if we were to test all the antibodies in your system, you actually have, like all of us have some low level of antibodies to all of these tissues. All right. But we don't actually notice them. They don't play a role in our life. We don't have symptoms. We certainly don't get a diagnosis until they build up to a certain threshold level. Okay. And then once they get beyond that threshold level, now they start degrading our body faster than we can heal and regenerate that tissue. So antibody production itself, not a bad thing. All right. And so it's actually part of the healing response, but our self-regenerative capacity should exceed the degradation, right? It's kind of this catabolic, like you talk about with exercise, catabolic, anabolic, right? So, when you're exercising, when you're lifting weights, it's actually catabolic, right? So it's breaking down that muscle tissue, but it's the self-regenerative capacity that turns it into an anabolic effect where we're building the muscle. Well, it's kind of the same with these different, antibodies breaking down different tissues in our body. Only when it gets beyond a certain threshold, now it becomes an overall net effect of degrading and damaging our tissue and building scar tissue in areas where we have, vital functions, right? Like thyroid tissue, right? When people have thyroid nodules or goiters or something like that in their thyroid, it's because the normal tissue has been so damaged. Now it's scar tissue that's forming, like calluses on your hands that are forming on the thyroid. And so it's a sign your body's not healing faster than the catabolic breakdown effect is taking place.
I love that you used the analogy of catabolic and anabolic, because that's something that, as you mentioned, I use quite a bit to explain what's happening actually in the gym, because people are always thinking, oh, well, I'm in the gym, so I must be building muscle. I must be doing really great stuff. And although you are setting up the foundation to do great stuff, you are breaking everything down. So if you're training every single day, specifically in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you're not eating healthy, you're not sleeping well, you're not doing any recovery-based stuff, then you're creating catabolic. And there's no time for your body to recover, to restore, to become anabolic, because you're not only are you breaking it down every day, but you're not giving it the nutrition, you're not giving it the sleep, which is where, the time it needs to recover. And so I'm so happy you just said that, because I think this now starts to give people a little bit more idea, like, okay, so when I'm creating a catabolic environment or an environment that's not regenerating, it's degenerating all the time because of what I'm feeding or what have you. This could be speeding up the different autoimmune diseases or things that happen. But one thing I want to ask you about is inflammation, because I just want you to touch on this, because that's another word that's like negative on all spectrums. Is in like, oh, I can't eat that because it's going to cause inflammation. Oh, I can't work out because I'm going to cause inflammation. Like, no. You do need to work out. There is good inflammation. So can you just give that just quick little,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's so important, right? And just like you talked about, hey, like high intensity exercise can be great, but we need to make sure that we've got good recovery afterwards. As long as we do, then the inflammation that occurs, which is a high level of inflammation when we're exercising intensely, like the way that you teach, the way that I personally exercise, it's a high level of inflammation in the system. But as long as we're getting the sleep, the nutrients, the things that we need to recover properly, we're turning that inflammation into a stressor that makes us stronger. We call it a hormetic stressor. So it's a hormetic stressor is basically a natural stressor that our ancestors encountered, that the body is used to, in a sense, like our genetic blueprint is used to adapting to. An example that would be exercise, right? It's something all of our ancestors had to do to hunt, harvest, to get food, to survive. They had to do it. And so but if, I were to take your blood work after your, intense workout, like immediately after your workout, it looked like you had a heart attack,
totally.
right?
Totally.
And so if I brought that to a cardiologist, said, here's my blood work, right? They think you're having a myocardial infarction, right? But if you told them, hey, no, this is right after I exercise, oh, okay, that explains it, right? Because they understand that's part of the inflammatory process. Now, if we take your blood work 12 hours later, let's say you work out at noon, right? The next day, let's say, next morning, we do a fasting blood work. You haven't eaten since, let's say, 7 p.m. at night. It's 8 a.m. Take your blood work. Now those inflammatory markers are down. Your body looks good, right? It's regenerating and healing. And so that's really what happens. So inflammation is just part of the healing response. The issue is when we have chronic, because inflammation should be shut off, right? It's part of a healing cycle, and we need to complete the loop, right? So there's stressors that trigger the healing cycle. Now inflammation comes out, right, to do its job to help basically break down damaged tissue, old senescent cells, get rid of bad, lower functioning tissue. And then that stimulates the process of healing, regenerating, and turning on the production of stem cells, for example, mitochondrial biogenesis and what we call mitophagy, where we break down the old damaged mitochondria within the cell. We increase the amount of mitochondria, all these amazing changes that take place in cellular physiology. And then, boom, we're back to, a healthy, strong, stress-resilient cell. And that process should be taking place. Inflammation is just part of that. The problem is when the healing cycle is not completed and we get stuck in fact, if we want to talk about a cell physiology perspective, we get stuck in what we call a cell danger response. So the cell itself, this is what's really interesting, Funk, is that, and I know when you were studying exercise physiology, just like me, we learned the mitochondria produce all the energy within the cells, right? And it's super important that we have a lot of mitochondria and well-functioning mitochondria to produce the energy. But we also realize now the mitochondria are actually like the nervous system or the brain of the cell, in that they actually sense the environment and then create adaptations in cell function based on that. Meaning the mitochondria will actually sense whether the environment says we're in a dangerous environment, like a wartime physiology, or a peacetime physiology. When it's in wartime, it will actually lower its energy production and will actually turn up the amount of oxidative stress. And oxidative stress is like a rusting, an internal rusting. That's the prerequisite that kind of triggers inflammation. So it creates an pro-inflammatory state. It actually intelligently does this, right? Because it actually helps reduce viruses, different pathogens, right? It helps trigger the natural healing response in the body. And then when it senses that environment is now safe, it will go back into peacetime physiology, and it will start producing energy, ATP, cellular energy, at a high level within the cell, and will reduce the amount of oxidative stress. And it can also produce energy when it's in a peacetime physiology through anaerobic and aerobic respiration, meaning it can burn sugar and fat for fuel. When we get stuck in the healing cycle, in the inflammatory cycle, we are not able to burn fat effectively for fuel, right? So somebody that has weight loss resistance, for example, their mitochondria are stuck in this wartime physiology, and they can only burn glucose, right? Which then produces more oxidative stress, because that's just part of it's in a sense, we call it a dirtier fuel, right? It produces more oxidative stress. It's not real energy efficient, but we can use it quickly, and we don't need oxygen to break it down. So the key is we want that for short periods of time. It's actually good.
Yeah.
But like when we're exercising, for example, but we want to complete that healing cycle and get back into this peacetime physiology where the mitochondria can now use fat for fuel very effectively, bring down oxidative stress, bring up overall cellular energy function, and create a more stress resilient cell. And ultimately, the quality of our life is going to come down to the amount of high quality stress resilient mitochondria within the cells of our body.
Okay. So, wow, that's a lot there. And I have something already planned to ask you, but I like this conversation about peace and wartime, because I also talk about that, not in the same way, but like when it comes to nutrition after workouts, and why you need, certain macronutrients to keep the body going and not put it into a survival mode where everything slows down and shuts down. And you're using like protein for energy, which is not what you want to use it for. It's got other needs. And because you're not giving the body what it needs specifically after a workout, now you're putting your body into that state. So again, I love the way you're saying this, because this kind of, hopefully people can see the analogies and go, okay, that makes sense. That, I gotta be always putting my body, specifically in 40, 50, 60, 70s, right? Because we're not 20-year-olds, we're more resilient in our 20s and 30s, mid to early 30s. Whereas now we're getting older. It's so important to treat your body like, I don't know, like a kingdom. It's like your number one vessel to health. And anytime you're putting other things in it, or not doing things you're supposed to do, you're setting it up for wartime, right? It's always wartime. Even if you're doing half the things right, the other half is over superseding it in some ways. So because you said there's over 100 autoimmune diseases, is that why this is very difficult for a family doctor to diagnose? And then from a family doctor, who's the next doctor or specialist that would take over when it comes to any type of autoimmune disease?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to really depend on the individual's specific symptoms and history, right? So like, for example, there's endocrinologists, right? There's immunologists. Sometimes immunologists will take over with autoimmune conditions, or more the specialist. But I mean, depending on the type, like for example, there's rheumatologists, right, that specialize in rheumatoid arthritis, or polymyalgia rheumatica, right? Or you're basically what that means is that you're damaging multiple. Your body is basically breaking down muscle tissue, right? So rheumatoid is relates to kind of joint function, right? Myo is muscle, so when we have autoimmunity to multiple muscle and joints, they call that polymyalgia rheumatica, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Have a long term
EMR,
there.
yeah.
EMR, right?
EMR.
And so anyways, it really is going to depend on the tissue that's being damaged. But here's what I'll tell you is that you go into these specialists and they're knowledgeable in that particular diagnosis and how to, the right tests and whatnot to get the diagnosis, and then the drugs to treat it. But they're actually never really getting to the root cause. And that's the issue, because, even the drugs that they're going to give you, like prednisone, right? Different corticosteroids are kind of the number one medications used with autoimmune conditions. And I'm not against doing that for a short period of time if somebody's really suffering, but they never get to the root cause, right? So they're basically shutting down your inflammatory response. that's not going to be good long term. And there's, these are linked with bone loss, right? Osteoporosis, with increased risk of cancer, heart disease. I mean, really every kind of condition, diabetes.
Totally.
And so they're not actually getting you healthy, right? They're allowing you to feel better, which again, short term is good. That way you can start addressing the root cause factors so you can get well. The unfortunate thing is that these doctors are really not trained on how to on either they really don't understand the root causes, or they just don't have faith. For many of them, they just don't have faith that their clients are going to be compliant in following a healthy diet, healthy lifestyle principles that they need to in order to address those root causes. And they just don't want to go down the rabbit trail, because in some cases, right, you could be eating right, exercising, sleeping well, right? You could be doing a lot of the right things that Funk teaches, but there's chronic low-level infection. Maybe you had a root canal in your mouth. Maybe you're in a house that's moldy, for example, and you're being exposed to mycotoxins that are driving up this inflammatory response. There's a whole number of different factors. Maybe you have heavy metal exposure, from a number of things, right? Amalgam fillings, right, in your mouth. And so getting to the root cause is really the key. And that's where functional medicine doctors or functional practitioners come in. Is they act as detectives that are like, okay, how can I figure out through questionnaires, through lab testing, right, just understanding your history, what are the root cause factors, right? And there might be 4 major ones, right? And we can perhaps move 2 of them right away by just changing your lifestyle, right? But it's kind of like if you have 4 nails in your foot and we take 2 of those nails out, we just improved your health by 50%, but your foot still hurts, right?
Right. Yes.
And so sometimes we got to go, nail by nail and kind of figure out, okay, which of these nails is really, like what nails are in the foot, and then start pulling them out slowly but surely until you start actually really noticing the difference in how you feel.
I'm so happy you said this again. So my sister Charlotte has been dealing with this autoimmune. Sounds more like PMR because there's a lot of joint pain, over the months, probably 5-6 months. She was extremely healthy before, and then all of a sudden it was like, it just happened. I can't even remember what the trigger was, but something happened, and then she couldn't even get up, and, so going to get all the tests, and people are sending her here and there, and I think she saw an endocrinologist, and then they're giving her different diagnosis. And then she goes to a rheumatologist, I believe, who she's seeing right now, to put her on prednisone. Now, I know prednisone because I took that for crypto-organizing pneumonia that I had many years ago. I know how absolutely horrible that is. And something that I was supposed to be on for 2 years ended up only being 6 months because I just went ham on doing everything I possibly could to get off that thing as fast as I could. But it's so like the problem I see, and I did try to explain this to her, but I didn't want to give her false hope. But the problem is what you just said about they're very good at diagnosing, and they're very good at giving you the, prednisone or whatever it needs. But, my sister and probably a lot of people after a while are at the point where, no. Okay, so is this the rest of my life? Because we still haven't addressed what caused this in the first place and what's doing all of this stuff. So can I work out? I don't know. She doesn't know she can work out, or she doesn't know she can do this or do that. And I know that I've had some guys in the Brotherhood who have had similar things. And my response is always, you got to push back on your doctor and ask them, what can I do? Because I don't want to be sitting here taking this forever. I can't. It's just, like you said, doing more harm than is good in the long term, because all of the negative things, I remember when I was on prednisone, my muscle, I lost muscle, literally you could see, instead of having the 6-pack ab, I had 5 because it was gone. That's what, your head's going to get bigger. You're going to, you're going to gain a lot of fat. You're going to lose muscle, literally lose muscle. And so I guess after you get to a point where, okay, you've seen the doctor, the specialist, they've given you the pain relief, but still haven't told you actually 100% what it is or what the next steps are. Is that where we go to the functional functional medicine doctor of functional medicine.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And especially, I mean, there's some things that you can start immediately, right? And I
Right.
think it's important everybody understands that basically with all autoimmune conditions, we call it the three-legged stool. There's a genetic component. Can't really do anything about that, right? But that's, roughly 30% of the role, right? The other 70% you can control. That is leaky gut. So every single individual that has autoimmune has damage to their gut lining. So the gut lining, so when you think about your intestines, it's basically like this barrier. It's like a hose going through your system. Okay. And it sounds strange, but it's kind of, it's like it's protecting the inside and outside of the body, right? So everything in the gut, in a sense, is actually like outside the body. It's like outside of your skin. But once nutrients get across the intestinal membrane, they get into the bloodstream. Okay, now they're delivered to the cells. But also there could be pathogenic bacteria, microbes, and then the waste products of these microbes, as well as undigested proteins that can get into the bloodstream. And when there's damage, when there's gut inflammation, and we damage the mucosal membrane, 80% of our immune system is actually in the mucosa, right? So the mucus layer in our intestinal system, it's called the gastro-associated lymphoid tissue. 80% of our immune tissue is right in there. And so when that becomes damaged in the intestinal lining, which is only one cell wall thick in our small intestine where we absorb most of the nutrients, when that tears, okay, now large undigested proteins, large undigested particles can get into the bloodstream, and pathogens, bacterial waste products, one we call LPS, lipopolysaccharides. They also call that endotoxin in the scientific research. And that is a potent inflammatory mediator, right? So it drives up inflammation in the system. And so one thing we know about everybody with autoimmune is they have intestinal permeability. So there's a lot of large proteins that are getting into the bloodstream, and that's driving this inflammatory process. It's driving this autoimmune response. And so we have to address that. And then there's some major stressor, right? Because they already had the intestinal permeability, but then there was some major stressor, or it could be micro stressors that built up beyond a certain threshold. And that could be toxin exposure. We talked about mold earlier. Maybe they're living in a home where they're breathing in mycotoxins, high levels of mycotoxins and molds on a regular basis. Maybe they have a high level of heavy metal exposure, pesticides, herbicides. A big one today is microplastics, right? They're drinking out of plastic everywhere, right? Everywhere they go. And so they're being exposed to this bombardment of plastics, phthalates, all different types of chemicals. So maybe their toxic load has built up beyond a certain threshold. I think about it like a bucket, right? Normally, toxins are coming in. All of us are exposed to some level of toxins. But our drainage pathways, we should be peeing, pooping, breathing, like exhaling and sweating these toxins out of our system. And as long as we're eliminating them effectively, it's not that big a deal. But if we either have a higher load than we can eliminate coming in, or our drainage pathways and our ability to eliminate them reduces, then they're going to build up, and all of a sudden that bucket's going to overflow. So that could have been that could be the major stressor that puts them over the hump. It could be, a relational problem. It could, mental, emotional stressors. Could be they lost their job, right? So they had major stress. It could be circadian rhythm disruption. That's a huge one in our society, right? So a lot of people are staying up late. They've got blue light exposure coming from their computer, from their TVs, from their phones, right? All these things. And they are basically going against their natural biological rhythms, where they should be producing a lot of melatonin. So after dark, as long as you block blue light, like I wear blue light blocking glasses after dark, okay? And so you can still get a little bit of, like be on your phone for a little bit or whatnot, but you should be having blue light blocking glasses, dimming all the lights in your home, right? And winding down, right? Winding down your brain, not trying to have a lot of goals and things like that. So you can go to sleep at a good time, right? I definitely recommend being in bed, sleeping before 11. Ideally, 10 is great. Every hour of sleep before midnight is equivalent to 3 hours of the regenerative capacity after midnight. You're going to get a big boost in melatonin, which is the number one endogenously produced antioxidant that can slip into the mitochondria, has a profound effect on protecting mitochondria. So we think about melatonin as a sleep hormone, but it's one of the most powerful mitochondrial protective agents and allows the mitochondria to complete that healing cycle back into peacetime physiology. You also have human growth hormone that elevates, right? Particularly at night, if you're going to bed at a good time. And that's your regenerative hormone. And so that signals fat burning, protect lean body tissue, burn fat, protect bone tissue, balance the immune system, get rid of high levels of antibodies, right? All those types of things. So circadian rhythm disruption, really big in our society. That's one we can correct, just with our lifestyle. We don't need, special testing and stuff like that to do that. And so that's a huge one that I see regularly. Blood sugar imbalances, right? So maybe you're eating a lot of ultra processed foods that are spiking your blood sugar, not eating enough protein in your meals. Protein, healthy fats in your meals, really key for stabilizing blood sugar. Try to eat as much real foods and less processed and ultra processed foods as possible. Stabilize that blood sugar. So critical. Maybe you have a food sensitivity, right? Some common ones are gluten, for example. Most people with autoimmune conditions have some level of gluten intolerance where they don't respond well to gluten. It drives up inflammation in their system, right? So maybe you have food sensitivities, could be dairy for some. I fortunately do great with dairy. Some individuals don't, right? Some people don't. Some people do really bad with eggs, right? So you got to find, there's certain things that I would recommend taking out, like ultra processed foods, but even with real foods, if you have an autoimmune condition, you may be responding poorly to a food that, Funk and I will say is a superfood, right? Eggs, for example, super nutrient dense food. However, some individuals have an inflammatory response when they consume that. So they need to avoid it at least for a period of time until their gut heals, right? Until they have their gut healing and sealing. So that could be a big issue. You might have low stomach acid levels, right? You might have an infection in your stomach called H. pylori, for example, that can be treated naturally, right? You may be eating on the go all the time. So in order to produce enough stomach acid, that's one of the biggest things when it comes to digestion. Stomach acid is what allows us to break down protein into amino acids so we can absorb the amino acids, which we need for a whole wide variety of different things. It allows us to chelate key minerals like zinc, magnesium, calcium, iron. It also disinfects the food when we're consuming it. Everything we eat, even if it was like freshly cooked, is going to have some level of pathogens on it. We have a natural system to disinfect it. It's primarily stomach acid that will break that down, but also bile as well. And so if we're not producing enough acid, we're not going to disinfect well. And the food, we need a really good, strong acid. In fact, at rest, the environment in our stomach, the pH level is around 3 to 3.5. Now, neutral pH, which would be like water, would be 7.0. Okay, so it's always acidic in our stomach. However, in order to break down protein effectively, especially, maybe a little bit harder to digest protein like steak, like I'm a huge advocate of steak or grass-fed beef. I think it's really nutrient dense, but you do need a good amount of stomach acid to break it down. Right. You need to get your acid levels down from roughly 3 to 3.5 down to somewhere around 1.5 to 2.2 to really break that down effectively. Now, it doesn't seem like a big jump, but it is, and it's energy demanding. So it takes intentionality for your body to do that. Now, one way we stop our ability from producing stomach acid is we eat on the go, because eating, we have two parts of our autonomic nervous system. We have our fight or flight, and we have our rest, heal, and digest. That's our parasympathetic. Fight or flight is what we call our sympathetic nervous system. It's our survival nervous system. It's the part that's activated when we're exercising. When we're trying to eat food, we should be in a relaxed state. We're telling our body everything's calm. And now we're going to put energy into our digestive juices, producing the stomach acid, the bile, the pancreatic enzymes, so we can metabolize that food effectively. So we need to be in a relaxed state. In our society, people are just eating on the go all the time, and that could be one of the things that's triggering low stomach acid. And if you don't have good stomach acid, food will actually just sit in your stomach and will start to rot. Okay, and that will create an environment where bad bacteria can build up. You might have reflux, right? Because the food, the actual gas produced from the fermentation there will come up into your esophagus, can cause either silent reflux or just full-blown reflux where you have heartburn. But it's also going to cause bacterial imbalances in your small intestine. It's going to cause more gut inflammation, poor digestion, poor nutrient absorption. It's a really big factor. So a couple of easy things you can do would be slowing down before you eat. Take a couple deep breaths, right, before you eat. Be in a state of gratitude. Like in my house, we pray before we eat. Not only is it a great way to honor God who gave us the means to have that food. A lot of people are starving around the world. We have food. So it's a great time to be grateful. But it's also activating that parasympathetic nervous system and allowing me to produce the digestive juices to digest that meal effectively. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's a great thing to do. You can also do like a little bit of apple cider vinegar in water before your meal. Right. And that will help trigger the acid production. Also, you can do things like chew on some ginger root. Now, ginger root's real pungent. It's not like flavorful, right? But it will actually activate the vagus nerve. Vagus is Latin for wanderer. It's the largest. It's a cranial nerve. Comes from it's cranial nerve 10. Comes from our brainstem. Travels down into the viscera, the heart. Actually has a big impact on heart function, lungs. It actually stimulates the production of all these digestive juices. So really kind of bitter types of substances actually activate that vagus nerve, and that's going to help with stomach acid production, bile, pancreatic enzymes, so you can really digest your meal effectively. So those are just a couple simple, easy tips that people can be doing. I have a lot of content on all of these things.
Yeah.
But another big one is nutrient deficiencies,
Yes.
right? Like, for example, your sister, a big nutrient deficiency in our society, but in particular with African Americans, is vitamin D deficiency.
Right?
She's
white though. She's white though. but
is she white?
Yeah,
okay, yeah. Well, you know what? Honestly, does she live in Canada?
Yes, exactly. 100%.
Well, I would say most Canadians, unless they're supplementing, you just aren't getting enough sun, right?
I agree.
And but yeah, I mean, African Americans are more at risk for vitamin D deficiency because you are meant to be close to the equator with a lot of your body exposed to sun, right? Whereas Caucasians, in Europe, Northern Europe, they can produce vitamin D with less sun exposure than an African American, right?
Yeah.
And so you're really not going to get enough vitamin D from food. You can get enough from the sun as long as you are sunbathing on a regular basis. And, in Canada, that's going to be hard to do, right? Summertime, you can load up for sure, but you're going to need some level of vitamin D supplementation in the wintertime when you're not able to get as much of that good sun exposure. So that's a big one. I also see a lot of zinc deficiency, right? That can be really, really common. Magnesium deficiency, very common. Certain B vitamins, B12, for example. A lot of people are deficient. That oftentimes has to do with stomach acid production. But if you're eating, the more ultra processed foods you're eating, the less nutrients your body's really going to be able to absorb. It's putting stress on your body and you're not able to absorb and utilize nutrients. The more real food, the better chance that you're addressing these nutrient deficiencies. Now, you still may have some because perhaps you're not producing enough stomach acid. Perhaps your body's under a lot of stress, from a wide variety of things, circadian rhythm disruption, childhood trauma, a relational problem, right? There's all these different things, toxins that can cause nutrient deficiencies. But that's another major area to address, making sure that, your diet is good, making sure you're taking like a good high quality multivitamin would be a good idea. Maybe some extra vitamin D, those can be some really helpful things there. And then, finally, just chronic infections, right? And these infections can be, obviously they can be in the gut, and that's a common one, whether it's parasites, fungal infections, viral infections. Like a lot of people, after they got COVID, they developed post-COVID or post-viral syndrome, right? And people get this with Epstein-Barr as well, or the flu, right? Where they'll develop post-viral syndrome, where their body never really kicks the virus, right? So they don't test positive for it, but they just don't feel like they did before they got the infection, right? And there's some level of viral load still elevated that's perpetuating the cycle of inflammation in the system. So we've got to kick that. So infections can be an issue, right? Oral infections, that's a big one. A lot of people, unfortunately, most dentists think when they do a root canal, they actually sterilize the area. But biological dentists are finding over and over and over again that these are not disinfected. In fact, they're breeding grounds for infections. And these oral bacteria that will actually chew into the bone, right, will release toxins, and those toxins will get into the bloodstream and they'll create this chronic inflammatory process. So if you've had a lot of dental work, root canals, if you had your wisdom teeth taken out, that can be a cavitation back there. And so like, here's a good example. Like my wife, I live a very healthy lifestyle. I teach this, right? My wife lives a healthy lifestyle, and she's had these recurring sinus infections that are just get really bad, right? And I'll get the same infection. It's super mild for me, right? And it's like, oh, no big deal, right? And so there's a couple things that we found. So like, we have 4 young kids in a 5.5 years. So that was a stressor on our body, of course. Now, we're not having any more kids. We're 4 and no more. And so I took one for the team on that, and we're 4 and no more. So she's no more babies to raise, and she had breast implants, and so breast implants are really toxic, unfortunately.
Right, yes.
And there's a whole big issue with breast implant illness. If you look that up online, you'll find a whole lot of people with wide variety of autoimmune conditions, cancers, things like that, related to breast implant illness. And so we got her breast implants surgically removed. And there's doctors that specialize in this and know how to do it the right way. Worked on detoxifying her. And there were some of her issues that got better, but she still had this sinus issue. And so I remember her telling me she had a root canal. And so I'm like, we have to look at your mouth too. So we got 3D x-rays, which a lot of dentists will do these 3D x-rays, but not all of them are good at, in fact, most of them, unfortunately, don't read them for infections in the jaw.
Right.
And so it turned out that actually her root canal was fine, but it was actually like they had already corrected that. But there's an expert in cavitations, wisdom teeth cavitation. So she had 4 infection spots, and we went to the top expert in the world out near Austin, Texas, Dr. Stuart Nunnally. If you go on his website, he has got this video where it's all of these people with different autoimmune conditions, all these chronic conditions. They got their root canal removed. They got their cavitations corrected, and like they got significantly better, right? Wow. He has this video. It's just tons of different testimonials of people. And so anyways, we are going out there to get her cavitation corrected right in there. And there's a lot of links between sinus issues and oral health issues, but also autoimmune, right? Autoimmune conditions and oral infections. So, I wish I could say just change your lifestyle and you get better. Yeah. And that is important. And for some individuals, just really dialing in your sleep and your nutrition will really move the needle. And actually, there's a lot of people that get better that way, right? And that's great. It's always easy when it's like, okay, just start eating right, exercise, sleep well, and you're going to get better. And there's a percentage that will. But unfortunately, there is a percentage that we need to keep going down that rabbit hole, find out, are there infections in the mouth? Are you living in mold, right? Do you have chronic infections in your gut that need more support than just lifestyle changes, right? Yeah. So that's basically the process that you have to take.
So yeah, there's a lot there. It's for some people that can be overwhelming. It's like, okay, I got to do all of that to figure things out. It's like, well, you may not have to do all of it, but if this is something that's debilitating you, then you need to dial everything in pretty much one at a time. Because if you try to do everything at once, you're not going to know which one worked. And you just start with that process. You start with the sleep. I think that's the lowest hanging fruit for anybody. It's always, for some reason, it's the biggest pushback that I get, because I tell my guys, sleep is key. These are all the things that are happening when you're sleeping. Tell them testosterone production, tell them muscle growth, like the things that they really want to, and just like giving you the mental health, better energy the next day, like all those things that they complain about. It's like, okay, let's start with sleep. It's not sexy enough. It's like everyone does it, so it's not something different. And so I always get pushback. And it gets to a point where they'll ask me the question, I'll say, you got to start with sleep. It's like the same answer over and over again. Try to probe for something different. Maybe if I ask it a different way, maybe I ask it like this, he may have something that some special, strategy, some hack. No, 7-9 hours sleep. Another guy was telling me, I think it's my sleep, but I just want to hear from you, blah, 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 blah. I'm a night owl. And I'm like, well, you're no longer a night owl. Like, hey, man,
Mhm.
if I gave you a job that paid you $1 million a week to to go to sleep at 10 and get up at 6, because that was part of the job, would you do it? Of course, you're going to find a way to do it. So you're not a night owl. You just choose to do things at night.
Yeah, what I always say is if you had no TV, no computer, no light other than a fireplace, would you still be a night owl?
That's awesome. Right.
No, they would go to sleep, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But they have all this entertainment. So really
Yeah.
what they're saying is, I love entertainment at night.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So sleep, lowest hanging fruit, then nutrition for sure, right? Because like you said, once you start to clean up, a lot of times people will talk about, like you just went through a few things. You went through vitamin D3, K2, zinc, magnesium. Oh, well, I supplement with that. Okay. So that's good that you supplement with it. But then, getting good whole foods. Well, I eat whole foods, yeah. But it's always, but you got to keep away from the processed foods, the sugars, like, you know what I mean? They're always, a lot of times people like to grasp onto the good things that they're doing and thinking, okay, well, I do all of that. Now, well, yeah, hold on. Yesterday you had cookies. The day before you had pizza. The day before, well, I don't always do that, but yeah, but those are the things that are like superseding all the good things that you're doing. Like, and then some, right? They're exceeding in a negative way all the good things that you're doing. Like, so, the nutrition, I think, is the second thing, like literally like 100%, like 100%. And then what foods, maybe getting a test to see what foods you're allergic to, right? So now, okay, I'm still getting this. Okay, let's do another nutrition where we get some tests just to make sure. Because as you said, mentioned, there are good healthy foods that some people can, like, I don't drink milk. I can't drink milk. I know that if I eat tomatoes, 4 hours later, my sinuses are going to be all over the place. So I actually know that that's what's going to happen if I eat tomatoes. So it's a choice of mine. But again, there's foods that could be causing a lot of issues. And then let me ask you one question about exercise workouts, because I know that sometimes because it causes, soreness and like after, and you're uncomfortable after. A lot of times people who have this autoimmune or joints or whatever, they stay away from it because they think they're damaging it more. They think they're doing worse.
Yeah. I know your question. So here's the deal with exercise when you have autoimmunity or really any sort of complex chronic illness. High intensity exercise, I take off the plate, right? If you're dealing with these issues, no high intensity exercise, but walking, like some sort of low intensity movement, is very anti-inflammatory on the body. Your body actually releases something called myokines, which are almost like hormones basically coming out of your muscle. And those have been shown to downregulate the inflammatory cascade. So being sedentary actually perpetuates the inflammation, but getting low level movement is very healing for the body. And so, yes, in somebody that's in a good state where you have a level of baseline health, getting that high intensity exercise makes you stronger and more stress resilient. We want that, right? That's how you go from, no chronic illness, I guess you could say, to thriving, right?
Right.
In life. But if you're you're in this place where you got chronic illness, complex chronic illness, you have no energy, you're constant pain, you're living on medication, you're not going to be able to do, the Funk Roberts workout, right? And that would actually be detrimental to you.
Yes.
And so instead you get out and you start walking, right? Walk to your mailbox and back, right? Do it a few times a day. And so you just get out and start doing some light movement, and that will really help you. And if you can add in things that you enjoy, right? So for example, going out and taking a walk with somebody else, right, is great, like a friend, and talking about things. In fact, that's actually been shown to be one of the best things for preventing dementia, right, as people age, is actually taking a walk with a friend where they're talking about all different things in their life. Now they're adding in the social component. They also have memory recall. They're laughing together sometimes. They're, asking each other questions. And so you're linking in movement with, cognitive capacity, right? You're also linking in sometimes laughing or oxytocin release because you're around somebody you enjoy. And so all of those things can be extremely beneficial for health and healing. So that's where you start when it comes to exercise and movement.
Now, when I was talking about exercise, I was talking more about like, because if you're on prednisone or anything else, or you literally have no strength. So we're talking about someone who kettlebells, running, like, and definitely the hiking in the in nature with my wife. That's what she used to do, the two of them. So that was a key thing because of the jobs that they both do. It's very stressful. They see a lot of stuff. So that's how they de-stress, right? But what I'm talking about is like just general, because, you go from someone who could do 30 push-ups to can't even, do a regular high plank for 10 seconds, right? So, or squats or lunge. And I'm not, again, just body weight squat, assisted. Like I'm talking the lowest level if you're dealing with someone who's like 95 years old and trying to get them back. That is the type of exercise I'm talking about. Like, yeah. So could you do that? Like, hey, today we're going to do 3 push-ups or 2 push-ups or 1 push-up. We just want to
Yeah,
start.
definitely. So first thing
Okay.
I would want to do is start getting that inflammation down, right?
Right.
And so when it comes to utilizing movement for that, which is a key part of the process, a lot of things we talked about, really optimizing sleep, optimizing light exposure, circadian rhythm, breathing, different breathing exercises that can be really, really helpful, like
Mhm.
box breathing. There's a lot of different things, low hanging fruit, like you were talking about. Movement is one of those. And so I don't start with like a strength exercise. I would start with just like a daily activities of daily living, like walking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, even for some people, like, bathing themselves, right? Or things like that. I mean,
Yeah.
depending on where they're starting from, but just for one person, walking to the mailbox is not a big deal, right? One person with, with an autoimmune disease, like polymyalgia, like PMR,
Yeah.
um, one person walking to the mailbox is no big deal, right? For another person, that is a big deal. Like
Yeah.
that's not easy for them, right?
Right. Okay.
And so you kind of have to start where you're at,
Yeah.
and then you just kind of want to go to what we say your threshold, kind of like with lifting, right? It's kind of the same principle, the principle of overload.
Yeah.
You want to just barely get to a point where it's a little bit uncomfortable, and then come back. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? And
100%.
then come back and really focus on resting and regenerating.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you can walk a mile, great, walk a mile, right?
Right.
If you can walk a mile twice a day, walk a mile twice a day.
Okay.
Does that make sense? That's kind of where
100%.
you start.
Yeah.
And as you're starting to do that and you're feeling better, then yeah, okay, do a plank for 20 seconds,
Exactly.
right?
Okay. Okay.
Yep. So you just start gradually,
Yes.
it's like physical therapy. It's like, if you break your arm, right, you're just starting with really basic movements.
Okay.
You tear a muscle tendon or something like that. It's like you have to just really gradually build that back, build your
Perfect.
fitness back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That's good because I think the what she was afraid of, and also other guys who are injured or what have you, is if I do this plank for 10 seconds, am I doing worse? Like, am I pulling myself back? Like, am I creating more damage? I'm like, well, you're not going crazy with a push up. You're starting here because you do need to build some muscle back because muscle's also,
Hmm.
important organ and muscle for us.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
you don't want to just not do anything. The walking's great because I think that that's something that you can get in all the time. So it's good to hear that at least. Again, I'm talking baby steps, man. I'm not going
Yeah,
straight.
yeah,
Just to
exactly.
at least get that. And I think the confidence comes back too when you feel like, okay, I did 1 push up. Like that's a
Hmm.
confidence builder into helping you explore more ways to get better, right? And figure out what's going on.
Yeah, 100% for sure. Yeah, using movement to heal is a key part of the process.
Okay. So with all of this, I think this has been great. I think um, we have a kind of like a checklist of things to start with, right? And go through, okay, but I think the key message would be after you've gone through the specialist, no matter what it is, what type of autoimmune or what have you, whether one of the three, it's functional medicine time. I think that that's the key. Finding a doctor in functional medicine.
Yeah, or even a practitioner. I mean,
Okay.
there's a lot of practitioners, good health coaches, a good certification that I've seen a lot of people that are really, really, really knowledgeable, but they don't have a doctorate, but it's the FDNP. So it's functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. They're very well educated. So a really good health coach, that's teaching really good principles can
Yeah.
help guide you along this journey. And you can just, if you go to
Yeah.
drjockers.com,
I was going to
I
say,
have
is
a
that
really
you?
great article, and it is the 7 major factors causing autoimmune conditions. And it will take you on a deep dive in all of those areas that I talked about.
Yeah.
So that's like a good template to have,
Yeah.
right? And some really good content I have on my website that kind of just give you that baseline level of education.
Yeah.
And that will help you figure out a good practitioner that can help you walk through these things.
Yeah. So, doc, your website's absolutely incredible. It's just literally, and I think that for someone who's dealing with any type of autoimmune, a lot of people have it, you said, right? Like a lot of people. Is that?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. For sure. I
Okay.
mean, in
What,
our
what are the
society, chronic autoimmune and chronic inflammatory conditions are on the rise. I mean, so many people are out there suffering.
right? And they don't even know it could be something that, they go to their doctor, they get the diagnosis, they're on drugs, prescription drugs, and and then that's it. It's like that's it because
Yeah.
I feel like what happens is when you get on the drugs, it's like, okay, when is this going to get better? But they're not doing anything to change it. You have
Yeah,
to
that's
do
a problem. In our society, there's this learned helplessness,
right.
right? It's kind of like, oh, it's genetic, whatever. I just have to take this medication. I got to take my medications. And that's really because people just don't want to change their lifestyle. I mean, it's a comfortable uncomfortability, right? It's like, I'm comfortable with, a lot of people are comfortable with the idea they have this autoimmune condition. They can just take this medication. They feel better.
Right.
As long as, because they're trying to avoid the uncomfortability of going down the rabbit hole, changing their lifestyle, right? Doing the things that are going to help bring them back to good health, because there's uncomfortability involved in that. And so, but the reality is that you don't have to have that learned helplessness. I mean, really, no matter where you're at, your body wants to heal, right? And so we just have to turn down the noise that's blocking and interfering with its ability to heal.
Awesome. Where can people find you? I know we talked drjockers.com, but I do think
Yeah.
that even before you say, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the podcast. Definitely drjockers.com should be like literally the podcast, his podcast, that site should literally be bookmarked. And it's like a daily thing that you start your day off with, right? You do your gratitude journal, you do your meditation, your breath work. I got a 21-day breath work coming out. So that I'm so happy you said box
Great.
breathing
Yeah.
stuff because most guys don't know how to do that. And then Dr. Jockers, like literally, and then start that day off with the information and the education that will, kind of fuel you into the next day. But where can people find you alongside drjockers.com?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks so much for that, Funk, and I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation. I hope a lot of these things really move the needle for your sister. It's always a shame seeing a loved one suffer like this, and so I hope this really helped. But you can find me drjockers.com. Everything's there, and I also have a popular podcast, YouTube channel where I'm doing trainings on all of these types of ideas. So Dr. Jockers Functional Nutrition Podcast, and then just Dr. David Jockers on YouTube.
Can I steal 3 more minutes of your time?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask, how do we support those family members? How do men support their wives, their kids, their brothers or sisters or parents who have this? How can we, as men, support those around us during these times?
Yeah, I think the biggest way we influence people is loving and encouraging them. Don't just come off the podcast and be like, listen, you have to listen to this, or, you know what I mean? Not just giving them a list of like, you have to do all these things and overloading them. It's really loving and encouraging them, so just let them know you care about them. Right. and encouraging them to say, hey, look, I really think that, I've made these nutrition changes. It's really helped me. But, I think it can really help you. And so whatever it is, you're just trying to really be a source of encouragement and a safe place for them. If they feel safe around you, you're going to have more influence in their life. If they feel judged by you, then you're going to have less influence.
That's huge. Thank you. So that was very powerful what you just said there, because I think that that's a major thing that we miss, this creating that safe space. So thanks so much, Dr. Jockers, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
All right. Thanks so much, Funk.